Hey Julie, I love that you mentioned Bon Jovi. That's so funny because yes, Bon Jovi was big when I was a teenager. The funny thing is that I lived in sort of an area where there were two crowds of kids and two crowds, and those crowds listened to different music. So there was the headbangers and then there was the preps. And I was a prep. And so we had total music wars, the headbangers and the preps. And so I didn't technically listen even to Bon Jovi because I didn't listen to any hair bands. Like anyone that had big hair, it was totally in a different clique. So funny. My husband, Rob, he grew up in an area where he was in Yellowknife and there was like no preps, I don't think, up there at all. They were all in the headbanger group, so he listened to all that Metallica and stuff like that. The funny thing is that I did actually secretly like Bon Jovi, and I remember as a teenager, my friend and I and Janice driving along in our car when we were 16, just blaring Bon Jovi and singing along with it. So I admit I had a Bon Jovi album, and yes, I love Bon Jovi, and I still will rock out to Bon Jovi, and I think I'll add a Bon Jovi song to my snazzle, to the snazzle party for sure. Because yes, Bon Jovi was definitely a part of my past. But yeah, it was funny how we had these two total circles, and they didn't mix at all. Like the headbangers and the preps, they were totally separate. And I remember being at summer camp and us having music wars. I remember we had on the other side of the wall of the cabin, our two cabins were separated by a wall, and a group that was in the other cabin, they came from an area that more had that headbanger kind of music, and we were all these preppy girls, and so we were blaring each other's music, trying to make each other's louder. Now you can imagine who would win. Clearly the headbangers had louder music than we did, but yeah, they kind of went out on that. But it was funny, we had these whole music wars going on, and not to be dissing, and I totally don't mean to be saying anything bad about like that music, what we called in the time headbanger music, because later on in life I did listen to some Metallica and a little bit of AC/DC, a little bit here, but that's not really my thing. That's more Rob's whole scene. But yeah, I did listen to a little bit of that heavier music later. But the music that we were listening to at the time was, you know, the rock of the time. Oh, Julia's coming out here. But the rock of the time was lighter stuff. So I listened to a whole variety of stuff from like really kind of light stuff from like Thompson Twinish kind of things when I was really young. But then as I've mentioned before, sorry, I just had to grab Julia there. And then I listened to, as I'd mentioned, stuff like U2 and all that kind of stuff as well. But anyway, so thanks for reminding me about Bon Jovi. I'll definitely add it to the snazzle.